All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about this tiny sliver of land with a pretty wild nickname, the Chicken's Neck. And just recently, a single comment has put this incredibly critical area right back in the geopolitical spotlight, making waves all across South Asia. And this right here, this was the spark. While he was visiting China, the head of Bangladesh's interim government, Muhammad Yunus, made this comment. Now look, on paper, he's not wrong. But calling the region landlocked kind of hints that it needs someone else, say like China, to give it a path to the sea, a path that goes around India. And that implication is what got New Delhi's attention so fast. So you gotta ask, right? How can one little comment about geography create such a huge fuss? Well, it's because it pokes at one of the most sensitive, most strategically vital spots in all of Asia. This isn't just about lines on a map. We're talking about a nation's lifeline. Okay, so to really get why that comment landed like a bombshell, we need to zoom in on the map. Let's take a look at the unique and honestly incredibly fragile geography of this place. Its official name is the Siliguri Corridor. And here it is. This is the heart of the matter. The Siliguri Corridor isn't just one way to get to India's northeast. It's the only way by land. It's this super thin thread of territory, just squeezed between Nepal on one side and Bangladesh on the other. Talk about a tight spot. And check out this number, because this is what really drives home just how vulnerable it is. At its skinniest point, this corridor is only 22 kilometers wide. I mean, that's barely the length of a half marathon. It's an unbelievably thin connection for something so incredibly important. So, what's on the other side of this narrow little passage? Well, just a massive, strategically vital chunk of the country. We're talking about all 8 of India's northeastern states, home to almost 50 million people, and every single one of them depends on this one fragile link to the rest of the nation. So you've got this natural weakness, right? This geographic fragility. And now it's getting squeezed by some intense geopolitical pressure from the north and the south. It's creating what analysts are calling a major strategic squeeze. And this really lays out that pincer-like pressure. So from the north, you've got China. They're building up a ton of infrastructure in the Chumbi Valley, which basically puts their military right at the corridor's front door. That's what led to that really tense border standoff back in 2017. Then you look south. There's this growing partnership between Bangladesh and China. We're talking about things like reviving a key air base, potentially with Chinese money and help, putting another threat just dangerously close to that lifeline. Yeah, let's zoom in on that threat from the south for a second. This airbase, Lalamanirhat, it's been pretty much out of commission for decades. So the worry in New Delhi isn't just that Bangladesh is bringing it back online. It's who they're reportedly doing it with, China. And its location. Well, it's described as being perilously close to the corridor. And look, this isn't happening in a vacuum. China's footprint in Bangladesh is getting bigger and bigger. They're already their #1 arms supplier, a huge infrastructure partner, and their militaries are doing joint exercises all the time. This whole shift is forcing India to completely rethink its strategic calculus in the region. So what does all of this add up to? It leads to what military strategists call the choke point scenario. And honestly, this is the absolute nightmare for Indian planners. It's the risk of a two-front problem: coordinated pressure from China in the north and an unfriendly or allied with China Bangladesh in the south. In that situation, this lifeline could get squeezed shut, completely cutting off the entire northeast from the rest of India. But India isn't just sitting back and watching this happen. Faced with this growing risk, it's pushing forward with a really clear two-part strategy to secure this lifeline: bypass and bolster. Okay, so let's break that down. First up is bypass. This is all about creating alternate routes. Think of projects like the Caledon route through Myanmar, which would give India access to the northeast through the sea and rivers, completely getting around the Siliguri corridor. That will be a total game changer, right? It cuts down that dangerous reliance on one single point. But at the same time, they're bolstering the lifeline they already have, pouring tons of money into new highways and rail lines to make sure they can move troops and supplies in fast if a crisis ever kicks off. And that bolstering isn't just about roads and railways. India has seriously beefed up its military readiness on the ground. You've got these big, integrated military drills like through Shakti Prahar, bringing the Army and Air Force together to practice. And here's a big shift. They've now stationed border forces inside the corridor itself, not just on the edges. And that move is a direct response, a clear signal to China's increased military presence in the area since 2020. So, when you put all these pieces together, the tricky geography, the shifting diplomacy, the military muscle flexing, what does the future really look like for this critical choke point? Well, here's the bottom line. The chicken's neck is so much more than just a weird bit of geography on a map. It's a strategic fulcrum. I mean, the security of this tiny 22-kilometer wide strip has a huge influence on everything. India's diplomacy with its neighbors, its core national security plans, and its entire military setup in the East. And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. As India races to build these new routes and strengthen its defenses, will it actually make the chicken's neck less of a choke point? Or by drawing so much military and diplomatic attention to this one tiny spot, could it accidentally turn it into an even more intense flashpoint for future conflict? That right there is the critical question for the years to come.